evening, everyone, and welcome to Talking Villanova Football with head coach Mark Ferrante. I'm Steve Pannone. We're coming to you live from the Inn at Villanova University, located at 601 County Line Road in Radnor, and I'm joined by Coach Ferrante, as I mentioned, of the 6-0 Villanova Wildcats. They improved to 3-0 in the CAA with I have a heart condition, Coach. I'm not sure you're aware of that, but a heart-stopping 35-28 win on the road over the Tribe of William & Mary. And, Coach, the game had a little bit of everything in it. We'll start in the first half. You guys win the toss, you defer, and then they come down and start throwing it all over the place and maybe catch you a little bit off balance?
Yeah, Steve, they did a good job. I mean, we knew they were going to be somewhat unconventional in some of the things they were doing. They have some different type of formations, and no matter how good your scout team does, and our scout teams have been doing a phenomenal job giving our guys looks during the course of the week, it's never going to be the speed that the opposing team can run their own system. So they took the opening drive and probably used 5 or so minutes of the clock and went down and scored and took a 7-0 lead. And then on the next kickoff, their kicker guy does a great job. He places the ball really well. We had a field return on, but he pinned us in the corner. We started at our own 4-yard line. So we got a first down or two, and then we had to punt the ball away. So their first possession, they scored. Our first possession, we punted. And then it flipped. Our next 3 possessions, we scored touchdowns. Their next 3 possessions, they had a turnover on the one that got us first touchdown at the 17-yard line. We had a short field. 2 plays later, we scored to tie it up. And then they punted 3 consecutive times. So it was a crazy first half. We were moving the ball. We only punted once the whole game.
Yeah, I noticed that.
And that was the opening drive. So the first half was, like you said, a lot of give and take. We were moving the ball. We had opportunities to score more before halftime. So, like I said, each team had 6 possessions in the first half. Okay, they scored on their opening possession. We went touchdown, touchdown, touchdown. Got to the 24-yard line. Had an opportunity to kick a field goal. Unfortunately, we missed it. Got to the 17-yard line. Missed another field goal. So our next 5 possessions after our first one, we had opportunity to put points on the board, and we did 3 of the 5 times. They went touchdown, punt, 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 and then they punched one in, on a good drive before the half. So at halftime, it was 21-14. It could have been different, but it wasn't. It's a CA game, and Coach London, their guys came to play too. So they did a great job, and they were moving the ball, and it was a 7-point lead for us, thankfully, at halftime.
Now you start the second half. You guys receive the opening. You get the kickoff, and then it's like a possession by possession game. They get one, you get one, they get one back, and thank goodness you guys get the last one.
Thank goodness we had the extra one in the first half. Yep. You know what I mean? Because the second half was even crazier than the first half. So each team had 6 possessions in the first half, like I just said. The second half, each team only had 3 possessions. We took the opening drive, went down the field in 10 or 11 plays, and fumbled at the 25. So that gave them the ball back. They went down and scored. So now it's 21-21. We went down and scored, had another nice drive. So now it's 28-21 for us. They took a, I believe, 17-play drive, used a lot of the clock, and scored to make it 28-28. And then we're into the fourth quarter, and we barely had any possessions, either team. And we took a 16-play drive and went down and took the lead with 1:59 to go. We went for it on 4th down earlier in the drive. Then we went for 4th and 1. And at that point, it was 28-28. Everyone's saying, well, why didn't you kick the field goal there? A lot of people ask me that. And we're at the 1-yard line, 4th and goal at the 1. And the way I looked at it is like, okay, it's 28-28. If we don't get it, they got to go 99 yards. And that's hard to do. Maybe not 99 yards because it's tie at the time. So they got to go far enough to get the field goal attempt at least with not much time left on the clock. But we went for the touchdown and took the lead with 1:59. Then they went 10 plays, got to our 30, and converted a 4th down during that drive, and then that was another 4th down. Our defense came up with the big stop, and we were able to go out there, take a knee, and win the game.
Yeah, I remember when you guys scored, you mentioned 1:59 to go in the game, and I'm thinking they had 3 timeouts left at the time. I said, well, the time may not factor into this drive, and then it got down to that point. There was a 4th down and I think a 7 play where they throw an incomplete pass. You guys call a blitz up, you get some pressure on the quarterback, he just overthrows their receiver Yoder, who had been Everson, who had been really good all day, and you guys take over on downs, take a couple knees, and get out of Dodge, as they say, with a great road victory in the CAA.
Yeah, no matter who you're playing, and we say it all the time. I mean, regardless of who you're playing in this league, and regardless of what your record is, regardless of what the positions, team's record is, all that stuff. You got to come to play, and they sure came to play. And, it was one of those games where our guys found a way to get it done, and that's kind of been the, mindset and the resiliency of this team so far this year. They're just going to find a way to keep coming back. Now, different than the Towson game, we didn't ever really get behind. It just kept getting tied. So we just were fortunate enough to, put more on the scoreboard than they were. And the turnover battle was even. I think we only got one and they only got one. So from that perspective, it wasn't a big thing, and that could have made a difference in a ball game that's that close. Whoever maybe got more opportunities from turnovers could have made a difference. But fortunately, that balanced out, and we were able to get the extra touchdown.
Yeah, and you talk about your guys. Some of your guys are real young, and they really stepped up for you. Jaron Hayek, 2 touchdowns again, and then D. Will Barley. Justin Covington goes out in the first half, and D. Will Barley steps in. He scores 2 touchdowns as well. And we talk about it. These are kids who were playing high school football this time last year,
right.
And now they step in the CAA, and they're not just playing; they're making a humongous impact in the game.
Well, when you have a roster that's as lean as ours, you're going to have some freshmen that are going to play. And William Mary had the same thing. Mm-hmm. Their wideout, who had a really good game, was a freshman. Their original starting quarterback, who ended up not playing against us, is a true freshman. And we were kind of preparing for him the whole week because he's more of a running style quarterback. And then they put in number 5, and he was more of their thrower, and he did a good job throwing the football. So he did a good job. But they're not freshmen anymore. We're into week 5, 6 now, heading into week 7, and Hayek's our leading receiver. D. Will, I don't know how many touchdowns he scored, but he had 2 this week. He had other games where he's had touchdowns. So they're doing a phenomenal job, and they're always going to add value with the depth and so on and so forth. So, now we're getting into week 7, and they've played in the CA games, and we've been on the road quite a bit. So they've had to grow up quick, and they've responded really well. We've had some other freshmen. I mean, Elijah Solomon had a block punt 2 weeks ago, and that was a big play in that game and so on. So, unfortunately or fortunately, however you want to look at it, we don't have that 110, 115-man roster. We're 88 this year. We've talked about that in previous shows. So that roster is a lot smaller than some of the schools that we're playing against. So, we're going to have to play some 18 and at times 17-year-old guys against some of the guys that we're going against.
Yeah, and I had a chance to talk to Chris Bowden before the game on Saturday and talking about Hayek. And what he said is, I think he went up to the high school, I guess, late in the year. He'd already committed and signed with you guys. And he said, when I got a chance to see him physically, I thought he looked ready to be in that part, and he said that's why I knew. I think he, if he could grasp the system and pick up all the things that and obviously the speed of the game that's so different from high school, but he thought he had a chance to be ready to play, and he obviously has been.
No doubt. You look at the physical maturity of individuals coming in as freshmen, and he has that. He has 2 brothers that play at Rutgers, and they're both wideouts. So, he knows what a college program is going to be like, and he probably works out with his brothers when he was in high school and did their college workouts over the summer when they're home and when they're not at school and so on. So, physically, he and D. Will and Elijah and some of the other guys are ready to go. Now, can they grasp it mentally? And that's the other part of it, because it's probably the biggest difference really is the mental and the speed of the game when you go from high school to college. And those guys have done a phenomenal job not only coming in physically ready, and they do come in July for us. Our freshmen come in for second session summer school, so they get to work with our strength staff and all that stuff, or at least for that 4-week period out of the summer training. So they're a little more prepared coming into preseason practice. But now, can they handle the mental aspect? And the positions we redshirt the guys the most are probably O-line, because a lot of times we'll take a lighter, more athletic guy to bulk them up and get them ready to go, and then quarterback, obviously, because there's so much involved with that position. But wide out, running back, linebackers, maybe some DBs, special teams type guys, they get an opportunity to play earlier on, and if they're physically ready, and then obviously the mental piece. So we've been able to lean on some freshmen over the years, and this year they're doing a good job.
Coach, you mentioned that strength and conditioning piece. After we take a break, we're going to bring back your strength and conditioning coach, Mike Tucker, who'll be our guest next after we take a quick break here. We're live from the Inn at Villanova University, located at 601 County Line Road in Radnor. Tonight's show is presented by Miller Lite. More taste and only 96 calories. It's Miller time. Back with more Talking Villanova football after this on 610 ESPN. Welcome back to Talking Villanova Football. Head coach Mark Ferrante. We are live from the Inn at Villanova University, located at 601 County Line Road in Radnor. Tonight's show is presented by Miller Lite. More taste and only 96 calories. It's Miller time. And, Coach, we're joined by your strength and conditioning coach in his second year, but when we can talk a little, he got a late start in his first year, so really his first full season with your group. It's your strength and conditioning coach, Mike Tucker. Mike, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Appreciate you being here, Tuck. So this is my third season, obviously, going into as a head coach, and this is the first time that we've had the same guy for the full year of training.
Yep.
He came in July, which is late going into last season, so he didn't have an opportunity to work our guys out all summer. But we went through the fall season, then we went through the off season, and then you go through the pre-spring phase, and then the spring training phase, and then the summer phase, and all that stuff. So this is the first time, and any coach in the country will tell you that the most important hire of your staff is your strength coach. Because he spends more time over the course of the year than with the student athletes than really we do. In December, January, and the month of May, we're on the road recruiting while he's back at home training the guys. And then summer, we're very limited in what we're allowed to do with our guys. He's with the guys all summer, that 8-week training summer and all that stuff. So, Tuck, great to have you here. Why don't you explain to everybody what that formula is for the year? As far as not the formula, but as far as the time frame and so on, as far as what you do and how much time you do spend with the athletes.
Yeah, so like you said, with all of you guys on the road recruiting, I do spend the most time with them, and then I have the unique opportunity to have all relationships with all 88 guys versus the position coaches generally specialize in, who they deal with on a day-to-day basis. So it's really important to start with the relationship aspect for us, and our whole staff does a really good job with that. Colin Masters and Sean Doherty, they do a tremendous job building relationships with the guys and getting them to buy in, because that ultimately, the cliche, they don't know how much you know until they know how much you care. So, but it's true. So I think we've built a great culture of relationship building and getting the guys to buy in. But throughout the course of the year, and I know we've had a lot of talks about it when I want more time and I want 4 or 5 days, and in spring ball we had 6 days. So that was unique to our staff for the first time. So trying to have those conversations and continue to improve, the product we're putting out on a day-to-day basis for them.
And we're selfish as coaches, right? We don't want to give him any time. We want him to get the guys big, strong, fast.
Without working with
him. But don't give him the amount of time he wants to have with them, So why don't you talk about, when we come in the summer, there's an 8-week period that you're allowed to have in the summer, and freshmen get there really for the second half of that.
Yep.
So why don't you talk about some of our young guys? We were just talking about the freshmen that are playing. And to give you an example, I was talking to Connor Watkins today, our freshman quarterback who's running scout team for us right now, doing a phenomenal job. Him and Matt O'Connor down there running scout team quarterback. And he walked in the office today, and you'll like this. His shirt looked tight, right? And I'm like, what are you wearing such tight shirts for? You just wanted to show everybody, He goes, Coach, I've gained 15 pounds since I've been here. He goes, I'll show you a picture of when I had this shirt on a year ago, and it's much looser than it is now. So why don't you talk about what you do with those guys in the summer?
Yep.
And then why don't you talk about our schedule in the fall, in-season training, and then we'll go from there.
Yeah, the young guys especially are a unique situation because, as you guys mentioned, they're 17, 18. They come from high school, and you don't know what program they had, whether they had a good, bad, or maybe no program. And you have to kind of start from ground zero, and guess what? They have camp in 4 weeks. So it's a combination of starting really slow, but also prepping them for the demands of football in 4 weeks. So it's definitely a challenge. And a guy like Connor does a great job. Came in around 201, 203. He's up at 214, 215 now. But for our upperclassmen, that's our money time, June, July. We have 8 hours. You guys are on the road recruiting or doing things like that. I mean, we see them every single day, and some days it's like, hey, how was workout today? It's like, they might have been sluggish, but ultimately, by week 8, they might be tired of us.
Right.
But because we spend so much time with them and we're trying to prepare them for the demands of the game. So, 4 or 5 days a week running and lifting every day, whether it's conditioning style stuff, max velocity training stuff on the field. But every position they end up on the field in the game will not be the first time they're exposed to it. So we're on the field in different positions, different angles every single day, exposing them to the different structures that are going to be imposed upon them during the fall. That's kind of our summer deal. And then as we progress towards July, it's more, okay, I want to repeat personally a conditioning standpoint, 5 seconds on, 30 seconds off, right? That's how college football is played. It's 72 plays, average of 12 drives of 6-play drives. So I'm going to replicate that as best I can from a conditioning standpoint and repeat burst effort. And now that we're in the fall, it's really making sure they feel good, right? Sunday post-game, I want them to flush them, make them feel good. That'll be our upper body strength stimulus day. Come Tuesday, Thursday is a lot more strength and speed stimulus based, but minimum effective dose is the term we always use, right? What is the minimum amount of work I need to do in order to elicit the adaptation, and then that's it, because they have so many demands on the field, as you know.
Now you know what all that meant, right?
Oh, sure. I graduated from Villanova in the 80s. I don't know what any of that means.
Yeah, I mean, back then,
I can't get into school anymore.
You used to have a strength coach. He trained them in football, and, that's
Tell me
it.
Eat more and lift some weights.
So now it's strength conditioning. All right, so now that's going to transition me into the nutrition aspect of things. Why don't we talk about the nutrition? Because, we have a nutrition station in the weight room where you tell what you do in there.
Yeah, so we're spoiled with our setup, to be honest with you. We have a locker room right there, and then the weight room and nutrition room is connected right to it, and then the garage door, the bay door opens right up to the field, right? So we're constantly going in there, hey, get a snack pre-lift, get a snack post-lift, get a snack pre-practice, get a snack post-practice. So we're constantly providing, but the providing is only one aspect of it. It's the education piece, right? Because I can tell you X, Y, Z, but when you go to the cafeteria for lunch and dinner, it doesn't matter if you're not making those conscious decisions. And guys like Connor do a great job of asking questions, coming in for extra work, doing things right on their own time. And, other guys, it's a little bit more of a process. They don't have as much of a background in that stuff, and it's unique and new to them. So it's constant education, and then, providing the product.
Coach, we're going to take a quick break. When we get back, one thing I want to talk about is training the different athletes. You have 300-pound linemen. Mm-hmm. You have 190 or 180-pound defensive backs, and the different training that goes into the position work that these guys deal with. So we'll take a quick break. We'll be back with more with Mike Tucker after this. We're live from the Inn at Villanova University, located at 601 County Line Road in Radnor. Tonight's show is presented by Miller Lite. More taste and only 96 calories. It's Miller time. Back with more talking Villanova football after this on 610 ESPN. Talking Villanova football, head coach Mark Ferrante. We are live from the Inn at Villanova University, located at 601 County Line Road in Radnor. Tonight's show is presented by Miller Lite. More taste and only 96 calories. It's Miller time. We're joined by strength and conditioning coach Mike Tucker. Mike, before the break, we were talking a little bit about just it's not one size fits all. Obviously, you got 300-pound linemen, you got smaller D-backs, you got mid-sized linebackers. Talk a little bit about the training for different positions. What you're doing with linemen as opposed to D-backs and running backs and quarterbacks and everybody else.
Yeah, so it comes down to breaking down the game to each individual position group, right? We have 340-pound O linemen who come into contact with the defensive lineman within half a second. For them to have similar field training as somebody who backpedals 20 yards and flips their hips, opens up for 20 yards is, I would disagree with them having the same training, but. So going back to our staff model and how that's helped so much is Sean Doherty can go and take the skill guys, Colin Masterson can go and take the OLs. So we split up our field training immensely. The weight room is more similar between skill, mid-skill, and big. So your DBs, wideouts are doing similar stuff on the field with some minute changes, right? Your linebackers, quarterbacks, tight ends. They're doing similar stuff on the field with a little bit of change than your OLDO. In the weight room, it's a little more similar, but on the field, it's very, very different in what we do. We got to prep them for making that contact within half a second, making sure they're strong at the correct joint angles. And then the DBs, I was talking to the athletic trainers today, they were saying the lack of soft tissue injuries we've had. But, having...
That's everyone knocking on wood, guys.
So just having the implementation of that entire staff model in place so we are able to provide as specific as we can. So like I said earlier, the demands aren't the first time they're exposed to something. We want them to be exposed continuously when they're under fatigue, when they're fresh, to those demands of the game.
And they do all that in the summer training and those type of things. They try to get as position specific as they can. And, talking to those guys, why don't you talk about some of the recovery things with, the Feel Good Fridays and all the things you do there. Championship work is what you call it and those type of things. Why don't you talk about how they not go through the weight training, and it's not a recovery, it's more of a prehab versus a rehab. Why don't you talk about some of the things you have the guys do there as well?
Yeah, so pre-practice we have guys come in and depending on what their body says about them pretty much, the joint by joint, what they need is what we'll provide for them. If it's an ankle guy, we'll do stuff to activate different things. If it's a knee guy, we'll turn off his anterior chain, turn on his posterior chain and make sure that he's able to function at practice properly. That's the ultimate goal, right? Is they can come to lift and do everything, but are they activated, all the muscles that are turned on, working properly and functioning well in order for them to succeed optimally at practice? So that's kind of our pre-practice deal. And then post-practice, like Coach mentioned, champion work, guys will come in, we'll have a card, whether it's strength, power, whatever their deficit is or whatever they want to work on that day. But it's a lot of mobility recovery stuff because, like I said, you could have the biggest squat, bench, whatever, but the availability is the best ability, right? So we want to make sure they're fresh, feeling good, and ready to play.
Back in the day, you didn't go to the training room unless you were hurt.
Yeah.
Now you go in the training room to take care of yourself,
so you
to
don't
stay out of the
hurt.
training room when you're, to not be hurt. So it's like I went down the training room today, and we had a number of guys, and this wasn't just our guys. There were some other athletes in there, but they have those recovery boots, is what they call them.
I've seen them.
The things they put on from foot all the way down to hip, and it inflates and deflates and just flushes, the muscles and those type of things. I know I'm not as scientific explanation.
That's why you hired Mike. You've got it.
You're right, but and all those things like. This past weekend, the bus ride to William Mary is pretty long, okay? He gave each guy on the bus a lacrosse ball to put on his back, put on his glute, put on his leg, and just roll out while you're, on the bus sitting in there. So, to do those type of things. And we actually changed our schedule. We started in the spring, or was it summer when we did the ATP?
Spring.
It was in the spring. So we flipped our training room time in our meeting time. So they come in and have breakfast, and that's another thing that we have really good for these guys. We have breakfast in the morning delivered to the facility, so they get breakfast, and then they go from breakfast to meetings, so we're sitting around, and then they go to ATP, activation, taping and treatment, and prep work. The prep work that he just talked about to get ready to go on the field, which makes sense. It used to be they'd come in early, they'd eat and go to the training room, and get taped up, get ready for practice, and then they go sit in a meeting for an hour. So, that's kind of backward. But a lot of programs,
that's the way they've done it for years.
That's the way you do it, right? And, so Tuck brought that to me, and I'm like, okay, let's try it the other way, and it seems to be working out pretty well. So they eat while they're digesting, we're meeting, and then they go and they do a half hour to 45 minutes, depending on what day of the activation. So some are in the weight room, some are in the training room, getting taped up, so on and so forth, getting their treatment, and then when they come out to the field, they're kind of warmed up a little bit, ready to go, and I think that's been a real added bonus for us. So
yeah, Tyler Waite, our athletic training, and the whole staff has done a tremendous job with that. Guys are in and out. Like you mentioned earlier, the athletic training room is right next to the weight room, so we open the doors up. Guys are floating in and out. Hey, go see Tuck for 10 minutes. Go see Tyler for 20. And like Coach said, the flipped schedule allows us to optimize their body and then go out to practice instead of optimizing their body to go sit in meetings for 45 minutes.
Right, and then it allows some of the guys, like you'll see a lot of the wideouts, they don't do quite as much inside, but they go outside and they're on the jugs machine. A lot of times guys would try to stay after practice, and it would lengthen their day to catch extra passes off the jugs machine or something like this. Now they have that time pre-practice to go out there a little early and do those type of things. So it's really, I think it's really been a nice thing. It's really helped, and it makes sense when you think about it now. Okay, let's feed them, have them sit around and digest, and then let's activate them as opposed to the other way around.
Sure. Well, it's interesting. You just say, as a fan, is like they go for practice for 2 hours and then they go play a football game, and now you get a chance to see behind the scenes that this is a well thought out process. It's been evaluated from top to bottom. These kids are putting in a lot of time and a lot of personal time in terms of getting their bodies right, eating the right way. We talked about being able to practice the right way and being able to perform on Saturdays, and up until now, you guys are doing a really good job.
Yeah, well, so it's on him to keep it going now.
No, Mike, we appreciate you taking us joining. We talked about the jugs machine, so we're going to bring our wide receivers coach up next, see if Nate Pagano knows how to work that jug machine or not. So, Mike, thanks for joining us. We're going to take another quick break here. We're talking Villanova football live with head coach Mark Ferrante from the Inn at Villanova University, located at 601 County Line Road in Radnor. Tonight's show is presented by Miller Lite. More taste and only 96 calories. It's Miller time. Back to Talking Villanova Football with head coach Mark Ferrante. We're live from the Inn at Villanova University, located at 601 County Line Road in Radnor. Tonight's show is presented by Miller Lite. More taste and only 96 calories. It's Miller time. We're joined by first-year wide receivers coach, but third year in your program, Nate Pagan. And Nate, we appreciate you taking some time and joining us today. And we want to hear all about the Jugs machine. We'll get into that a little later. But Coach, talk a little bit about Nate and his background.
Yeah, Nate's phenomenal. He came here a couple years ago, as you said, is his third season with us, and started out coaching our tight ends and did that for 2 years. And then Coach Flynn left to go to Princeton, our wide receiver coach for 13, 14 years. I lose track of all the years with some of the guys that have been here, myself included. And and Nate did such a good job in the position he was coaching the tight ends that when Flinney went and wide receiver position opened up, I really didn't interview too many people. I had to do some phone interviews and things like that because you have to go through the protocol. But Nate was the guy that I knew I was going to hire because he's in house. He did a great job for 2 years, and I was happy to put him on board and give him the opportunity to coach our wideouts. So Nate, thanks for being here. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
So that's the last 3 years.
Yep.
Why don't I have you explain for everybody out there of what your coaching track record has been?
Yeah, so ended up graduating from Westchester University in 2013. Had big influences on me, my high school coach, my college coaches, my father. Knew I wanted to get into coaching, so I had moved home once I graduated, and didn't know kind of the steps to get involved or how to get that niche into coaching. So I moved home, took a job at Powertrain Sports, and I was teaching kids like speed school. I knew John Troxel at Franklin and Marshall, so I was going to volunteer my time there. Coach Troxel is really good friends with Coach McNeil and Greg Roskitz at SUNY Cortland, and they happen to have a receiver's job opening up about 2 weeks before camp. So I went up there, interviewed about 2 weeks before camp, and took a job at SUNY Cortland. Spent 2 years there as a wide receivers coach. From there, I moved on to Stevenson University in Baltimore, Maryland, and then got the opportunity to come here 3 years ago now to be a GA and coach the tight end. So just connections kind of gotten me here. Ola Adams, our defense coordinator, was at SUNY Cortland at the time. Coach McNeil, the head coach, is very good friends with Coach Ferrante. And when I was first getting in and I wanted to learn, I was a sponge. I used to come up and visit with Coach Ferrante and Coach Flynn and just try to learn as much as I possibly could. So that I think getting my name around there a little bit, and then constantly showing my face and staying in touch with guys, and those connections kind of got me here, and I'm grateful for sure.
So perfect segue, right?
Yeah.
Coach McNeil, for those people here that have been following our program for a number of years. When I came in '87, Dan McNeil was already on staff. He was on Coach Talley's original staff from 1984, and Dan and I were neighbors. Dan and Sherry, my wife Georgie, and myself, we're really good friends with the McNeils, and we lived around the corner, around the block from them. So Dan McNeil, as Nate just said, he trained Nate for us. He trained Ola Adams for us because Ola was Dan's defensive coordinator up there. That was Ola's first opportunity to be a defensive coordinator. Lenny Smith, who's currently on our staff, we got him from Cortland, and Matt Ambrose is one of our strength coaches, and he played and coached at Cortland. So Dan McNeil
he's
been a phenomenal trainer of young coaches, and then when he gets them going in the right direction, we hire them and bring them back to our program. So it's been perfect. And Dan and up there at Cortland, he's like I said, a dear friend. He was here. So I was here in '87. He left after our season of '96. So the first 10 seasons I was here, he worked in, and he really helped me because when I first came here, I coached on defense. Dan really helped me because I didn't know anything about defense. A lot of people might think I don't know anything about anything, but I definitely didn't know defense.
Not this year. You're knowing everything you need to know.
I played. It's our staff and our players. But I played offense my whole life, so I didn't know much defense. And Dan really took me under his wing at the time as a young coach. And Dan was our defensive coordinator, did a phenomenal job, and just a great friend. And, we have a Friday night game coming up, and Nate and I have talked about this.
Yeah, yep.
Cortland Ithaca is like our Delaware game. It's a huge rivalry.
The biggest little game in the country, they call it.
And they play for a jug. It's the Cortica Jug.
The Cortica
right?
Jug,
The
yeah.
Cortland Ithaca Cortica Jug. And they play in MetLife Stadium this year.
I do know that.
All
yeah.
right. And I think they have like 33,000 tickets already sold. And they play this Saturday after our Friday game, which will be our team's day off. So Nate and I are going to call Dan and try to get some sideline passes and go up there and watch Cortland. But
that.
anyway, Dan's awesome. So Nate, why don't we talk about now? Obviously, you're back probably more comfortable with wideouts than you are tight ends. To be honest with you, right?
Absolutely.
Why don't you talk about, some of the things you've been doing with our guys and, some of the guys that you've been working with? Because we mentioned Hayek obviously earlier, but we have some older guys that are doing a great job as well, Shanga Hodge and, some of the guys. So why don't you, share that information with the people who are listening?
Yeah, it definitely feels good to get back to a position I played, and I coached it for the past 4 or 5 years prior to being the tight ends coach here. So definitely more comfortable being able to talk coverages and technique and things like that. I'm 5'7", 170 pounds, telling our 6'5" tight ends how to block it. They look at me like I was dumb. But being able to, incorporate things that I used as a player and then as a coach over the past years has really helped these guys. Jaron Hake, as you guys brought up, a young freshman who, when he came in, he looked the part, had a really good camp and, did a really good job, and I actually held him out a little bit. He had a little bit of a hamstring injury prior to camp, so he was playing really well. I held him out, and then continued to challenge him. First few games he sat behind Des Boykin, who was playing at a very high level as well, and finally I gave him the opportunity, and he's kind of run with it. He's a guy who understands the game. He's always in our offices watching film, so seeing that from a freshman, that's something you love as a coach. And then you have guys like Zach Kirkston, who's a senior, Shanga Hodge, who can come back for another year. Zach has been a guy who's dealt with some injuries, so I'm constantly rep counting my guys throughout the week, whether it's in individual, whether it's when we're in scout team periods, understanding of, hey, maybe I need to pull that kid back a little bit, especially Zach Kirkston. He's a guy from a mental perspective, he can handle the mental reps. He doesn't really need to go out there and do it so much, but he's playing at a really high level. He's a guy that it's really hard for me to take off the field because he knows what he's doing on every single play, and he's going to give you his all. So seeing him have success now, I know I'm really happy for him, and he's going to keep doing a great job. Shanga Hodge is one of the hardest workers in the room. He's one of the first guys out to practice. Is playing football at a really high level and creates mismatches for us as an offense to be able to game plan and put him and use him in different areas, whether it's the screen game, whether it's taking shots vertical, which Dan Smith is doing a lot, chucking the ball deep. So just those 3 guys, and then you have guys like Des Boykin who can step in and he's going to know his role. He's on every single special teams as well. So trying to create that culture and getting these guys to understand that at any given time your opportunity is going to arise. And Josh McGrigg, a senior, who's mainly just a punt returner, but trying to keep them motivated and understanding that, hey, at some point in time your opportunity is going to come, and it's up to you to rise to the occasion.
You mentioned, I'm thinking like Hake and Boykin, a younger player. You got a freshman and a sophomore, and you mentioned Kirkston and Hodge who've been around. You get your room, let's say, starting, at camp in August. How does it work? Like, you got guys that have been there 3 and 4 years that kind of understand all the concepts. I guess you're new, but you coach with Coach Flynn, who coached these guys before. You have I'm going to assume, probably, I don't know why, but maybe some of the things are similar. And how do you get the young guys up to speed without holding the older guys back?
Yeah, we didn't change too much from an offensive perspective. Formationally, things are a little bit different. We have guys lining up all over the place, but understanding how kids learn is the biggest thing. Some guys are visual learners, some guys are cognitive learners, and they can just pick it up by saying. So getting these guys up to the board, that's always crucial. I quiz my guys on a daily basis. So again, understanding how kids learn nowadays is very crucial. And then ultimately over the summertime too, I was sending the freshmen installs and things like that so they could study them before they got here in camp. During the summertime, we also get a few hours a week that we can meet with our guys. So, trying to get all these guys up to speed so that when they got here and we get here day one for camp, they know exactly what they're doing.
And like we talked about when Ola was on, I know you're about to go to break, but a good coach can coach any position, and Nate is a good coach. It's motivating, it's teaching, it's communication, it's building relationships. You got to learn the technique part, right?
Yep.
Like Ola went from playing defensive back, coaching defense, to Columbia wide receivers, Villanova running backs, back to defense, now coordinator. I went from playing quarterback to coaching running backs to coming here coaching defense, and then back to offensive line. And Nate's the same cut from the same cloth. He's a good teacher. He's a good motivator. He builds relationship with his players, and he gets them going in the right direction. So, he learned how to coach tight ends. Now he's a little more comfort zone because he's coaching the position he played, and that's always helpful as well. But
we will take a quick break. We'll come back and talk to Nate about how he builds those relationships and what triggers each guy to go out there and be as effective as they can be. So we'll take a quick break. We're live from the Inn at Villanova University, located at 601 County Line Road in Radnor. Tonight's show is presented by Miller Lite. More taste and only 96 calories. It's Miller time. We'll be back with more Talking Villanova football after this on 610 ESPN. Back to Talking Football with Villanova's head coach Mark Ferrante. We're live from the Inn at Radnor at Villanova University, located at 601 County Line Road in Radnor. Tonight's show is presented by Miller Lite. More taste and only 96 calories. It's Miller time. We're joined by wide receiver coach Nate Pagan. And before the break, Nate, we were talking about, Coach was saying, what makes you a good coach. And we talk about some of the things that, you talked about kids learn differently. What are some of the techniques you use to motivate, teach, prepare, all the things that you need to do to be a good coach?
Yeah, I think again, every kid is different, and you have to figure out their personalities and what makes them go, and understand what their why is, and understand, hey, why are they doing the things they do, and who they are as a person. So a lot of the times, you try to create that culture during the preseason. I have guys fill out a card and I have them write down their 5 goals, and that tells me a little bit about them and what their goals are. And it could be family related, it could be a life, it could be football. And then I have a little bulletin in our receiver room, and at the top it basically says, do your goals align with your habits? So again, that tells me a little bit, hey, if a kid is, not playing to his potential, or he's not doing the things that he does, hey, I bring him in and are your goals aligned with your habits? Are you doing the things on a daily basis to make you an elite person first and then an elite football player? So again, I do things like that. I have an open door policy. My door is always open to my guys, not just my guys, kids on the team. They can come in and talk to me about anything. I like when guys they come in and they just talk about life. I don't always want to talk about football. I want to know how they're doing on a personal basis. How their family's doing. How's life outside of football? How's school going? So I think when you get to know these guys, and especially my room, my guys have tons of personality. It's a receiver position, which again everybody expects. Again, it's getting to know them on a more personal basis, and getting to know really what makes them go, what makes them tick, how to motivate them. And again, I think the one thing that they know is I'm going to challenge them on a daily basis. I think a great example example of that is, I sat Des Boykin down. I put Jaron in front of him, and I challenged that kid, and I said, hey, you need to either practice better or continue to get better. And he goes out this past week, and he's a special teams player of the week. So again, I challenge these guys to show up every single day and bring energy, and it's contagious. And right now we have a good thing going, being 6-0, and these guys are understanding that, hey, in order to get to 7-0, you have to bring it every single day. So again, it's an open door policy. Understanding what these guys are about and getting to know them on a personal basis is everything.
And every time I walk down the hall, there's someone in his room, players and, some of the other coaches, obviously. So Nate's a guy that people feel very comfortable going in there. And not just his positional guys.
Sure.
There'll be the tight ends that he used to coach a year ago and 2 years ago. They'll stop by his room. And there's the linemen that'll go in there and visit with Nate and so on, So we all have an open door policy. But, sometimes they're a little more apprehensive, if you will, to come to my office. You know what I mean? They feel like they're going to principal's office when they got to go see the head coach.
You're guilty by title.
Right, you know what I mean? But I'd like a guy to just stop in and say hello from time to time and get to know him a little bit as well. And some do. I'm not saying that some don't, but, we're all there. And that's the culture that, I'd like to have. I want guys to, when they come by the office, not just come in and do football only and just come in just to watch film or just come in because we have an issue of them, where we got to talk about some type of disciplinary thing or something like that. We want them to come in and, just come in and, get to know each other a little bit.
Great. And Nate, I'm going to ask you this, and as I'm going to refer to you as a young coach. I hope you're okay with that because you're still young. And how does that, I mean, you talk the benefit like, it said like I'm not young anymore, and you're around these young people every day, and they're going through experiences that you didn't go through that long ago, and how that helps you, because someday you're not going to be a young coach, God willing. You'll be an old coach somewhere here, God willing, it's here or somewhere else. But talk to me, how you can relate to these people, because you've gone through some of the situations they've gone through only 4 and 5 and 6 years ago.
Yeah. Again, you're constantly. I don't want to say preaching to them, but getting them to understand that I just went through it, and then getting the point across that there's. Football is football, but there's more to football. There's life. There's life after football, and getting them to really be motivated. Again, I think it's hard from that perspective sometimes for kids to understand you every single day. But I think, again, I try to get them to stay motivated, understanding that, I am a young guy. I just went through it, so I'm going to give you those life lessons that I just went through, and continue to push them on a daily basis. I think that's all you really can do. If that answers your question.
But I'm saying more to coach. You've got a great blend of, you got some really mature guys been doing this a long time. You got some young, energized blood that it's kind of. You've meshed in with a really strong group, and you seem just being around you guys enough that everyone gets along really well. We talk about with the players a lot, but I guess in football, when you have a large number of staff, that's important as well.
No doubt. We spend a lot of time together, more time with each other than we do with our own families. And, you have to be able to communicate. You have to be able to get along. And, it's been good. We have some new guys on staff, so that's been refreshing. We have some young guys that have been elevated, such as Nate. We have some other younger guys that are brand new to the program, and they add value as well, because sometimes they're just coming from their college experience and coming in, and they're really close to the system as far as getting to talk to the players, because they just went through it a year or two ago. But it's been good. It's been great. The energy's been great throughout our hall, where the coaches are, and obviously it carries over to the field, and our players are doing a great job communicating with us and us to them. And that was one of the things that we talked about. We felt we needed to have better communication, player to coach, coach to player, player to player. And they talked about that. That was one of the things that came out in our post-spring meetings, and they've done a great job building on that. So I give it to all the players. They've really embraced what we've talked about, and really what they brought to us to talk about, to try to improve on.
Great, Nate. We appreciate you joining. Congratulations. You guys are off to a great start. We appreciate your time. We'll take a quick break. We'll be back with more after this. We're live from the Inn at Villanova University, located at 601 County Line Road in Radnor. Tonight's show is presented by Miller Lite. More taste and only 96 calories. It's Miller time. Back with more after this on 610 ESPN. Welcome back to Talking Villanova Football with head coach Mark Ferrante. We're live from the Inn at Villanova University located at 601 County Line Road in Radnor. Tonight's show is presented by Miller Lite. More taste and only 96 calories. It's Miller time.
Okay, so before there's no one else to introduce, so I can take it from here now. So I've been dying to do this on all these other segments we've been leading up into. Ryan Fannin, our usual guy that's on air and lead us into all these highlights. He always misses one game a year, so he missed this past weekend. That was the one he missed. And Steve Pannone, our own Steve Pannone, was the filling guy. So all those lead-ins that you just heard was Steve. And I'll tell you what, Steve, at first I didn't pick up on it, to be honest with you, because your enthusiasm is very much like Ryan's. And then I'm listening to the next one. I hear the next one. I'm like, wait a minute, that's Steve doing the play-by-play, calling us in on there to color. And I'm like, okay, I got to say something about Steve. So here's the question I have for you now.
Okay.
I'm going to ask you a question. At the end of the game, did you steal Ryan's signature? No. Cats win, cats win, cats win.
I think that's copyrighted. I'd go to jail or something. So no.
Yeah, he patented that. Did he patent it?
Oh, I think it's definitely patented. And actually, we used to tease it. We do some post-game basketball in the days, and we and Whitey would get over to the Wells Fargo, leave Wells Fargo, go to Xfinity Live, and we would tease Joe and say, Joe, just shut it off before he can do his Cats win. Well, we thought we were off the air. He heard us one time. He was really offended by it.
No
so
doubt.
I was like, oh, he was so upset, and I said, all these Villanova fans are waiting for it. I said, well, you know what? Listen this Saturday, play James Madison. Ryan's back. I get to do color because Kevin's away, and God willing, he can say that Cats win at Saturday about 4:30.
That'd be great. And when he texts me and stuff like that, I always give it back to him. I'm like, I finished my text to Ryan with his signature Cats win. So
all right, Coach. So what do we need to do to have Ryan say Cats win? You take on the number 2 team in the country, James Madison. It's there. We run into everybody's family weekend. I think it's 3 straight. It was Towson, then it's William and Mary. Now we're at James Madison for family weekend. Obviously, an outstanding football team. And what's your initial thoughts on seeing the Dukes so far on film?
Yeah, they're a very good team. They got it going really well right now. And someone asked me today, because I had a phone interview, all of a sudden, no one wanted to talk to me a year ago. You know what I'm saying?
It's amazing how smart you got.
So now we're having a phenomenal season. Our guys are doing a great job, and I get a couple phone calls and do an interview here and there. And one guy asked me, he said, so kind of similar question to what you just asked, what are the weaknesses of James Madison, and or what are the strengths? I'm sorry, is what
I go that way.
What are the strengths of James Madison and all that? And I said, well, first, if you can identify any of the weaknesses for me, I'll answer that question better, because they're pretty strong everywhere. When you look at the statistical categories in our conference, they're leading a lot of them. I think they're leading points for. They may be leading points against. If they're not, they're very high. They might be leading in rushing yards, might be leading in rushing yards against them, and so on. So they're a very complete team. When you look at their depth chart on offense and defense, and now they are playing some young guys, but probably not as many as most. When you look at I looked at their defensive depth chart before I came over here tonight. They're 4 down linemen. It's redshirt senior, redshirt junior, 3, 4, 5 year players. The linebackers, same thing. The DBs, same thing. When you look at their right up in the media guide, 47 starts, 43 starts, 38 starts. So they got a lot of guys with a ton of experience and so on. So they're a complete team. Ben DiNucci, the quarterback, he leads the conference in passing efficiency. They don't throw it as much as Maine. They don't throw it as much as some of the other teams we've played. Rhode Island's throwing it the most in the league right now when you look at, again, the statistics. But the statistics don't always tell the whole story. You know what I mean? But they're complete. It's hard to find a weakness. They have a real dynamic punt returner. We witnessed that last year firsthand. His name happens to be Amos, just like our defensive back Amos. So, he had a good game last year. He's starting safety for him. And they have a lot of fast, physical guys on defense. Their O-line's doing a great job opening the holes, running the game, or running the ball. They have a stable of wide receivers that have been there for a while. Stapleton's there. He's been there forever, it seems like. So they're good, and then we're going down to their game. Now, they've been similar to us in a way. They've had a lot of road games. So, they'll be anxious to get back into the comfort of their home stadium, Bridgeforth Stadium down there. But it should be a great atmosphere, great environment. You know, the family weekend, and I've said this before, people asked me a question, how did you guys like playing in packed stadiums? Well, who doesn't like playing in a packed stadium? You know, whether they're yelling for you or against you, at least they're yelling. You know what I mean? And it's exciting, and that gets the adrenaline going. And that's our guys, I'm sure, are looking forward to the matchup, and we're going to have to go down there and play a really good game, just like everybody in the CAA.
No doubt about it. We'll take a quick break, Coach. We'll come back with a short segment to finish it up for today. So we're live from the Inn at Villanova University, located at 601 County Line Road in Radnor. Tonight's show is presented by Miller Lite. More taste and only 96 calories. It's Miller time. Back with more talking Villanova football after this on 610 ESPN. Back to talking Villanova football. Head coach Mark Ferrante. We're live from the Inn at Villanova University, located at 601 County Line Road in Radnor. Tonight's show is presented by Miller Lite. More taste and only 96 calories. It's Miller time. Coach, got about a minute or so to go here. You have a closing thought you want to share?
Just to let everyone know, I'm sure people are asking, are you guys ready and excited? Of course they're excited to go down and play James Madison. You know, it's a great opportunity to go down and play against one of the premier programs, not only in our league but in the country, and it's going to be another great CA matchup. Also, in closing, I'd like to just thank everyone that keeps coming out to our shows. We got a lot of familiar faces here, and it's awesome that they come out. And I do want to mention one individual by name, Dr. Ray Heitzman, over here to our right. Real good to see Ray. Haven't seen him in a while, and you know Ray as well.
Yeah, Dr. Heitzman taught me when I first graduated from Villanova back in '87. I was a graduate assistant with the men's basketball team. I had Ray for class, I think 2 or 3 times, and he's the main reason I'm the sole owner of a master's degree from Villanova. Without Ray, it wouldn't have happened, and I want to say thank you.
There you go. Great to have you here, Ray. Appreciate you coming out.
All right, that wraps up our shows for tonight, everyone. And the Wildcats get ready for their big game with James Madison on Saturday. So tonight's show is presented by Miller Lite, the original light beer brewed for more taste and only 96 calories. Miller Lite, hold true. Thanks to our hosts here at the Inn at Villanova. Thanks to Joe Gaines and Ryan Lennox back at the studio. Tune in to 610 ESPN when Villanova takes on the JMU Dukes this Saturday. Game time is 1:30. Pre-game show starts at 1:15. Our next Talkin' Villanova football shows will be Tuesday, October 22nd. No show next week because we have the bye. And we look forward to it. For Mark Ferrante, this is Steve Pannone. Thanks for listening on 610 ESPN.